My name is Dr. Shuaib Mohammad Bhat, Assistant Professor in the Department of English at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Today we shall be talking about listening skill. Listening is one of the important skills. We require some skills to learn a language. So I can say, in other words, in order to learn a language, we require some skills. And among all those skills, listening is being considered as one of the important skills. There are many reasons why listening is considered as one of the important skills that we shall be trying to discover. We shall be trying to find out all those reasons in this lecture today. So today the topic of discussion is listening skill. Okay. I would like to quote this. This is reflecting on the screen. It's Lee Iacocca. I want to just quote him. Lee Iacocca is an American automobile executive. He is best known for the development of the luxurious car Ford Mustang. So what he has said about listening, he has spoken an interesting statement he has given about listening. So I want to just quote him. He says, "I only wish I could find an institute that teaches people how to listen." See, this is very interesting. He says, "I only wish I could find an institute that teaches people how to listen." So these are the words of this person, where he says that I wish I could find an institute that teaches people how to listen. By these words, we can imagine what is the value and what is the importance of listening. So listening is not, what we people are doing, what many people are doing. People are not paying attention to the listening. We feel that it comes to us as it is natural. For example, if there is any sound, there are some sound waves, some noise is going on somewhere. So it is natural for our ears to listen. So there are many people who just consider this listening, it's something natural. So there is not any mechanism, there is not any proper channel, or there are not any strategies which we require for listening. No, that's wrong. So that's why people like this Lee Iacocca, he says that I only wish I could find an institute that teaches people how to listen. Then he says, business people need to listen at least as much as they need to talk. Too many people fail to realize that real communication goes in both directions. See again, he says too many people, they fail to realize that communication, it goes in both directions. Communication doesn't mean only that we have a good orator, we have a good speaker. He or she is having good speaking skills. He or she is having good presentation skills. That only cannot make our communication successful communication. So unless and until we are not having good listeners, when we are not having good listeners, all these effective speakers, they will fail to convey their messages. Because, as I told you, as this Lee Iacocca, he says that too many people, they fail to realize that communication, it goes both directions. It's a two-way transport where we have effective speaker or effective speakers, and at the same time, we must have effective listener, or we must have effective listeners. So we can say, by quoting Lee Iacocca, I want to make you people understand that communication, that listening skill is an important skill. Every communication process, every dialogue, every communication is incomplete if we are not having good listeners, if we are not having effective listeners. So then, let's try to see what listening is. Listening, as I see it, it's a process of receiving It's a process of receiving, interpreting, and reacting to the messages received from the communication sender. Obviously, I can give an example. Right now, I am speaking to you. So I'm a communication sender. I'm sending messages to you. I'm sending verbal messages to you. I talk to you. I deliver a lecture here. So I'm just conveying and transmitting my messages to you. Now, what listening is? Listening is to receive these messages, to receive the sound, and then interpret it and react to the message, react to the messages received. So how do we react? We cannot react to anything unless and until we are not understanding that thing. So in other words, we can say listening is to receive the sounds, to receive the sound waves, to listen or to receive a communication, and then interpret and react it, and then understand it. So listening means to receive the sounds and convert these sounds into the meanings, and extract the meaning from these sounds. That is what listening is. So then, I have elaborated it. Listening, it involves identifying the sounds of speech and processing them into words and sentences. Yes, this is what I am telling you. Listening, it involves identifying sounds. Right now, you all are listening to me. So you are identifying all the sounds which I am producing right now in the form of these words. Like as I speak many words. So these words, they are generally sounds. What listening is? Listening is to identify these sounds of speech and process them into words and sentences. Now, how can we process words into words and sentences? How can we process these sounds into words and sentences? We can process them when we understand their meaning, when we understand them, when we evaluate them in our mind, these sounds. So by evaluating, by understanding them, we convert all these sounds, or we process them into words and sentences. And listening, it's an active, purposeful process of making sense of what we hear. So these 3 points which I have which I am discussing with you, they are enough to understand what listening is. It's a process of receiving, interpreting, and reacting to the message. Then it involves identifying the speech sounds and then process them into words and sounds. Then at the last, it's an active and purposeful process of making sense of what we hear. So it is a purposeful process, an active process of all that which we hear. Process which makes sense of what we hear. We may be hearing a lot of noise, lot of sounds, but there are only selected sounds. There is only selected stuff which we understand and which we make sense of. I would like to quote an example. We all are in the markets. There is a huge crowd is there in the market. Lot of noise, lot of sound is coming from all the directions when we are in the market. But we pay our attention only towards those actions, only towards those sounds which are associated to us at that time, at the moment when we are doing anything. So it is, as I told you, it is a purposeful process of making sense of what we hear. So we just, whatever we are hearing, whatever we are listening, so by listening we make sense. By listening, by the active listening or by proper listening, we are making sense of all that what we are receiving in the form of sounds. Okay. And I have here introduced, I would like to share this definition given by International Listening Association. This International Listening Association, it was established in 1979. This is an organization which deals with the listening. They are conducting so many programs on listening, with context to the education, to the business, to different enterprises. So this is an international organization which deals with listening. So what this international organization speaks about listening? What is their definition? This says listening is the process of receiving, constructing meaning from, and responding to spoken and non-verbal messages. Again, if we see, this is all what we have said, what we have discussed earlier about listening. This ILA, International Listening Association, it says listening is the process of receiving. It is the process of receiving. When we listen, we receive. And when we receive, we construct a meaning. As I told you earlier, so listening means to construct a meaning from the listening words, from all the sound which we listen, which we hear. So this ILA, it says listening is the process of receiving of sound, then constructing meaning from the sound and responding to spoken and non-verbal messages. Responding here means, see, we only respond when we understand people. When we understand the communication of other people, then only we respond in the form of feedback. Sometimes we provide suggestions. Sometimes we provide some other suggestions or other ideas regarding a communication, regarding a dialogue. So, ILA, International Listening Association, it says listening is a process of receiving. It is the process of receiving sounds, constructing meaning from the sounds, and responding to those sounds. Listening is not like we are hearing a lot of sound, we are hearing a lot of noise. We are not paying attention to that noise. That's not listening. There is actually the difference between hearing and listening. I shall be discussing that thing in the upcoming part of my lecture. Okay, so why is this listening the topic of discussion? Why should we talk about listening? There is one more reason which just compels us to talk about listening, or I can say which clearly shows us the importance of listening. That is, I have written here, listening comes first. Yes, listening comes first. You all just imagine, imagine when a small baby gets birth in any family. So what is the first skill that baby is having at that time since his or her birth? It is the listening skill. So the first skill which every person carries right from the beginning is listening. Listening comes first. It is a first and foremost communication skill that we all learn in our lives. That's listening only. So the first skill. See, again, I would like to just take you back to this example of a newly born baby. When we talk about a newly born baby, that baby knows only listening, and it is because of this listening skill, a newly born child later on develops a language, learns a language. There is no professor of linguistics, there is no professor of Telugu coming to the family of a person whose mother tongue is Telugu. So then how people learn Telugu? How the people learn other languages as well? So we learn it because we listen it, because we catch it. As it's rightly said by someone, language is caught but not taught. So listening skill, it comes first. Every human being is right from his or her beginning, right from his or her birth, carries or contains this listening skill in him or her. So listening skill comes first. If it comes first, if we learn a language because of this listening skill, so that means this listening skill, it needs some practice in order to develop this listening skill. As I told you earlier, it's not like we are just receiving so many sounds and that's listening. No, there is a proper mechanism. It's a process which requires certain attention, which requires some attention from us. Okay, so now let's see what listening offers us. Why should we learn about listening? It's very important for you, it's important for all the students to learn. Why should we learn listening? What is the need to talk about listening? Because it seems as if it is some cliched topic. It's a common topic which everybody has spoken about it. So listening it offers us. What can listening offer us? It makes us better students. Yes, this is fact. Listening can make us a better student. When we listen to people, when we listen our lectures carefully, when we listen each and everything carefully, there are chances that we may excel in our academics. There are chances that we may excel in our education. So it is listening which makes you a good student. Right now you all are attending my class. So if you are not listening me carefully, there are chances that you may skip the important information of this lecture. There are chances that you may not assimilate, you may not receive what I am telling you, what I am discussing with you right now. So it is your listening, effective listening, which helps you to learn, to extract more and more from this lecture, or from any discussion, from any talk or dialogue. So for students, if you are good at listening, if you are effective listeners, there are chances that you may become better students. Then, this listening, it makes our interpersonal relationship better. Yes, interpersonal relationship. Social relationship, I can say. Relationship with our friends, with our family members, with our relatives, even with strangers, all the people who live in the society. So people want us to listen to them. When we are in a community, when we are in a group, when we are with the people, so we should not just avoid listening people. No, we should listen people. And when we listen people, we make them feel that you are important for us, you are special for us. And when we make people feel that your presence is welcome, you are important to us, so there are chances that we may develop congenial relationship with the people. There are chances that we may build a good relationship with the people. So, listening skill, effective listening, it can help us in building the better interpersonal relationship with the people. Yes. Then it makes you a better public speaker. Yes, listening makes us better speakers. How? Listening is not, as I told you earlier, it's an active process. It's not a passive process. It's not like that somebody is not attentive, somebody is not willing to listen, but at the same time he or she is listening. No. It's an active process. It requires active involvement. When I said it requires active involvement, I mean, see, right now you are listening to me. It's not only my words, it's not only the content, it's not only the subject which I am discussing right now, the topic I am discussing right now. It's not only that you are getting information only about it. Rather, you are observing my body language. You are observing my accent. You are observing my modulation, tone, pitch, the speed of speaking, the volume of my sound. So when we observe all these things, that means we are getting some knowledge about these things as well. And when we are getting knowledge, no doubt we are listening to the people, we are getting knowledge, and at the same time, we see when a speaker speaks in front of us, we see he or she possesses those speaking qualities, leadership qualities. He or she possesses good body language. He or she is good at body language. He or she uses exact facial expressions, gestures. So, by observing all these facets, by observing all these details, all these different things, all these different components, there are chances that one day, if we implement all these things in us, one day we may be called the better speakers, better public speakers. Because better when we listen to a speaker, at the same time, the speaker inspires us. Because it's not, because there are many people who are having stage fear. There are many people who are not, who are very hesitant, who are very shy to come out and speak in the public. So when we are listening to any public speaker, that public speaker inspires us. We all tend to be speakers. We all want to just be good speakers. So when we are effective listeners, there are chances that this effective listening can make us a better speaker. Because when we listen carefully, we observe, we analyze different domains, different qualities which are required for a better public speaker. And when we are observing all those details, all those different qualities, there are chances, if we implement all those qualities in us, if we just work on those qualities, there are chances one day we all can be better public speakers. Then, what can this effective listening also give us? It builds trust and encourages problem solving. Yes, it builds trust. How can we know each other? How are you relying on my information which I'm sharing with you right now? It's all because of communication. When I speak to you, and when you give your ear to me, when you listen to me, so by listening, you are checking my knowledge. By listening, you are checking, yes, what sir is speaking right now. Is it relevant or irrelevant? So it is because of the communication. When I talk to you, or when I talked to you, when I have talked to you, so you may have observed, is this information relevant or not? So you are here with the trust. You know, yes, you trust in me. Yes, whatever sir speaks, it's all relevant, it's all authentic. So this is all possible when you listen to me. So we can say listening, it builds trust. When we listen to people, we share, when we share our problems with others, when they listen to us. So people share their ideas, they give some suggestions, they give some advices to us. So by the process of this listening, or by the process of this sharing, when we share our problems to others, they listen to us carefully, they at the end offer some advices to us, offer some suggestions to us. So it is this good listening, effective listening of people, it builds our trust with other people. And it also helps us in problem solving. Yes, listening helps in problem solving. There are many people who are having a lot of problems, but unfortunately, many people are shy. Many people are not so outspoken. They do not want to share their problems with others. So what these people are doing, they are carrying all their problems with them. But you see, beta, you can see this thing. When we share our problems with others, there are many people who provide us solutions. There are no doubt, there may be people who are not having interest in your life. But at the same time, there is a huge bunch of people who are real humans, who are having humanitarian nature. They provide you solutions to your problems. They give you suggestions regarding your problems. So we can say this listening, it can help us in problem solving. And good listening, it also enables people to tell their stories. Yes, when we are good listeners, so it gives chance to others to tell their stories. And when we listen to the people, we get more and more knowledge. As it's rightly said by someone that it's better to be a good listener than the best speaker. It's better to be a good listener. Just mark my words. It's a good listener. A normal listener. It's better to be a good listener than the best speaker. The superior, one who is superior, one who is good in speaking. It's better to be a good listener rather than to be the best speaker. Why? Because it is this good listening which can one day make you the best speaker. As I told you earlier, as I was talking here about public speaking skills. So when we listen people, they share their stories with us, and every story, it has a moral. Every story has a lesson. Every story has something which can help us to develop ourselves in one or other way. Okay. So now I have discussed so many points about listening. You must have now understood, you must have reached to a point where you can say right now, or where you can tell that yes, this listening is something which is important. This listening is something which is not like voluntarily it came to us and we are listening. No, there is, as I told you, there is a proper mechanism. There are some strategies which every listener has to just imbibe or inculcate in himself or herself in order to be a good listener. So I here want to just make you people aware about listening and hearing, because both of these things, they are different. Hearing and listening, they are completely different things. They are completely different domains. See, when we talk about hearing, hearing is like, it's normal when it's a kind of a physical process, physiological process. It's a physical process by which we hear some vibrations, we hear some sounds, and these sounds, they are detected by our ears, and later on these sounds, they are converted into the nerve impulses. So there is nothing like, as I told you earlier when I was discussing about listening, there I told you it's interpreting, it's responding to the messages, it's just building meaning or constructing words, processing the meaning from all that which we listen. So there is nothing that is not here in the hearing. Rather, what is here? It's a physical process. Why it is physical? Because we need our ears, some sound is coming, it reaches to our eardrums, and later on this sound, it's being transferred to the nerve impulses and then sent to our brain. That's all about hearing. So there is nothing related to the meaning. There is nothing like to process these sounds into words and sentences. No, nothing. Nothing like that. That's why I told you it's physical only. Some noise is coming to our ears. Yes, it reaches to the nerve impulses, then to the brain, but we do not respond to it. We do not concentrate on this noise, on the sound. So this is hearing. And hearing is the first step to listening. This you should understand. Hearing is the first step to listening. When we listen means we receive the message, we understand the message, we evaluate the message, and then we respond to that message. But first we hear. First there is this physical process where the sound reaches to our ears, both up to our ears. So hearing, in that sense, can be called as the first step to listening. Then, hearing is involuntary act. It's involuntary. I would like to quote an example again, an example of the market. You are in the market and you are purchasing anything from any shopping mall or from any shop. So at the same time, there are a lot of salesmen are there. So they are also selling other stuff to other customers. And they are also busy with their bargaining. So some sound is also coming from there, but we are not responding to that sound. But at the same time, we are hearing that sound that reaches to our ears. And we do not want to listen to that sound, but it comes to our ears. It's involuntary. It comes to us by its own. There is not anything like a self-involvement. That's not voluntary. That's not like, yeah, I want to listen it. No, that's involuntary. It comes by its own. And it is natural. This is the function of our ears to hear. So whatsoever sound comes to us, whatsoever noise reaches to our ears, it is their function to hear it first. Okay, so it's an involuntary act where we receive sounds. As I told you, we receive sounds in hearing. We do not interpret. We do not construct a meaning. We do not process these sounds into words or sentences. Now, what is listening? Listening is different. It is the act of hearing a sound. As I told you earlier, hearing is the first step of listening. Same is the thing which I am telling you here. Listening is the act of hearing a sound and understanding what you hear. This understanding makes it different from hearing. So if we make a difference between hearing and understanding, we can say hearing only means to receive sounds. But listening means to receive sounds and at the same time to understand them. And at the same time to extract meaning from those sounds. To form those sounds into words and sentences. So this is what listening is. It requires concentration so that your brain processes meaning from words and sentences. Hearing doesn't need any concentration. Because when we are at some place, we hear a lot of noise, lot of sounds. We do not concentrate on those things. But at the same time, when we listen, we concentrate on each and every sound which we hear. Because we are listening it. Because we have to get some meaning from that. So listening is which requires concentration. And it's a voluntary act. It's not involuntary like hearing. Sounds reach to our ears. It's voluntary act. What makes it voluntary? Because we want to listen. Because we want to get some meaning from any dialogue, from any conversation, from any statement, from any sentence, from any talk. So it's a voluntary act and it leads to learning. This is the benefit. This is the disadvantage and merit of listening. This is what listening can give you. As I was talking about what listening offers us. There I talked about the first point which I said it makes us better students. Better students, there are many parameters. It's not knowledge only, but knowledge is one parameter. If you are knowledgeable, you are a better student. And only being knowledgeable cannot make a person better student. There are many other things. Your co-curricular activities, your discipline, different things are there. So, it leads to learning. When we listen, we learn something. So, it's better, it's very important for all of you to be good listeners. Because when you are good listeners, there are chances that you may be good learners as well. And I would like to just talk about some stages of listening process. As I told you, I gave you some hint in the lecture that listening is not something which comes to us by its own. It's a process. There is a mechanism behind listening. I would like to talk about these things. See, when we talk about the stages of listening, we have the first stage, that is receiving. The second is understanding. Third is remembering. Fourth is evaluating. Then we have the last one, that's feedback. So these are the stages of listening. Now you can see here. See, these all are the blessings of the God Creator. He has endowed us with the power of listening, and we are not concentrating on the mechanism which is behind listening. Same is the case with the speaking as well. When we talk about speaking, see how we have underestimated this mechanism of speaking. If I talk about speaking, I want to give an example. We feel, there are some ideas in our mind and we use our tongue and we are speaking all these things. That's it. No, it's not only this thing. There is a mechanism behind speaking. Different organs are there which we require to speak a word, to speak a sound. It is this, your trachea, your tongue, your mouth, your lips, your nose, even lungs, ear also. So we require so many organs in order to speak. Same is the case with listening. It's not like, God has given us ears and whatever comes to our ears, we listen it. No, there is a process. There is a process. And the process contains some stages. The first one is receiving. What is receiving? This is the basic stage in listening process. Receiving means it's simple. Paying attention to the speaker. Here, in this receiving process, paying attention to the receiver is very important. Right now, as you are listening to me, so the first stage which your listening process is going through, first you receive my message. You receive my words. And this is very important here. This is the first one and it is important. If you are not careful, if you are not active listeners, so you cannot receive my message correctly. If you receive it, if you pay attention to the receiving, there are chances that you can extract some meaning from this message. So the first thing is that is receiving. What receiving requires you? These my words, when they receive to your ears, it requires that you should pay attention to my words. And listener must not interrupt the speaker in the process of receiving. When you are receiving my words, you should not interrupt me. No doubt there may be some confusion. There may be some query. You can ask those confusions once you can ask your queries once you listen me carefully, once you receive the message carefully. Because sometimes we make haste. Sometimes we do not receive message carefully and we start asking some questions. It's good to ask questions. It's not bad to ask questions. I do not discourage you to ask questions. I rather encourage you to ask questions, because when we ask, when we clarify our doubts, so there are chances that we get more knowledge from the topic being discussed. So what I want to tell you here is the listener must not interrupt the speaker. Rather, the listener must first receive carefully. Once you receive carefully, then you can say, yes, I received the message, but it seems faulty to me. It seems there are some loopholes. Now I should ask. Then the listener must not rehearse her reply before the speaker completes his speech. This often happens, especially to the students. When we listen to anybody, when we receive the message, unfortunately, as I told you, we make haste. We do not receive carefully. We do not receive the whole message. So we are at the same time, we are planning to reply the teacher, to reply the person who is speaking. At this time, at the time of receiving, we should not plan our replies. Sometimes it happens to all of us. When we listen people, when we receive the messages, we are just thinking that, I should ask this, I should ask that. And we are rehearsing replies, questions in our mind. So we should avoid that thing. Because when our mind is busy with some other thing, so that means we cannot give much attention to the receiving process. And when we are not receiving carefully, properly, that means the rest of the stages, they may be faulty. They may not be up to the mark. They may not be useful. So when they are not useful, that means the whole communication process, we may not get anything from the communication process. That communication process, that may be your class. Right now, as the class is going on, if you're not receiving me carefully, if at the time of receiving you are just rehearsing your answers, your questions, or any other ideas in your mind, that means this improper receiving may lead you to the improper listening. You may not get what I actually want to convey to you in this class. So receiving is there, it's must. Then we have the second stage is understanding. Understanding. When we are good receivers, okay, now I have received the message carefully. Now what is there in the understanding? Understanding stage, is the stage during which the listener determines the context and meanings of the words that are heard through a process called decoding. Understanding is, okay, now I have received, you all have received the message, my words, the message which I am conveying to you. Then comes the second stage, understanding. In understanding, a listener, he or she determines the context and tries to get the meaning and tries to process this context in the words and in the sentences. So by the process of decoding, we have discussed decoding in the previous class, how we decode the encoded message or encoding message, encoded message. So the second process is understanding. Here we understand the spoken words. Here we try to just process the spoken word. Here we try to process the words. Here we try to just extract the meaning from the spoken words or from the heard words. Then this is the stage where the listener should plan his response. Now, as I was telling you there in the receiving process, we should not plan our response in receiving. Now, when we are understanding, we plan our response. Okay, sir has spoken about this thing, about this idea. So I received it well. Now I'm understanding it. I feel here I am having some confusion. So you can plan your response. Your response may be appreciation. It may be a suggestion. It may be a question. So here you can plan your response. Then, for better understanding a speaker's meaning, a listener can ask questions in order to better understand. Right now, as I told you, if you received my message carefully, now you want to understand it, you want to thoroughly just understand it. Now you can ask me questions in order to understand. Here you can ask me questions. So here your response is must. If you ask a question, there are chances that you can understand a concept carefully. You can understand a concept. Then we have the third one, that's remembering. Okay, you are good receivers, you received the message and you understood message well. There are chances that you may remember this. There are chances that this information may be stored in your memory. You may remember it. Remember it for future references. You may remember it in order to just add something to the stock of your knowledge. So remembering is the third stage. Then we have evaluating. Okay. So after these three stages, receiving, understanding, and remembering, we evaluate things. This stage occurs. So what can we see? What we see in this stage? This stage of the listening process is the one during which the listener assesses the information they received, both qualitatively and quantitatively. We assess, we examine the message. As you received my message, you understood what I am telling you, then you are trying to remember it because you found there is something interesting which can be beneficial to you in your future life. You try to remember it, and then you evaluate it. What is the quality of this statement, of these statements which sir is telling us, or which sir has told us? You check its both quality and quantity. So you evaluate, you assess, you examine what you are receiving or what you have received, what you have heard, what you have understood. Is it reliable or not? Is it true or false? Is it fake or is it right? Then, through the combination of understanding, then retention, remembering, and evaluation, the listener gets ready to form a response. Now that is the next stage, that is responding. Now you are good receivers, you received a message, you understood message, you are trying to remember it, you have evaluated now it. In order to make it a valid, you have validated it. Whether I should remember it or not, whether I should take it with me in the future life or not. Then what you are doing, the last stage is responding. Now you respond. This is the stage where we respond to the speaker. As I told you, responding there may be something like, it may be an appreciation. It may be just asking questions in order to clear our doubts. Or it may be any suggestion, any idea. It occurs at the end of the communication. We should remember this thing. We should not respond in between. We should always try to respond at the end of the communication. Then, I would like to now conclude this listening topic. There is one approach, solar approach. This is one of the important approaches which I want to share with you. Because till now what I spoke with you, I tried my level best to inform you regarding the importance, significance of listening skill. And at the same time, I made you aware with the mechanism of listening, with the process of listening. I'm trying to make you understand that listening is not something which comes to us naturally. Yeah, obviously, we have this process of listening, or we have this power of listening since our birth, but it requires some skills. It requires some degrees, some stages. If we are good at those stages, we can turn ourselves into good listeners or effective listeners. And obviously, if we are effective listeners, that means we can make our life better in many ways. So I would like to just quote here Gerard Egan. He is a professor here in Loyola University, Chicago, developed a model by the name Skilled Helper Model in 1998. This model is related to counseling. But this model has something to speak about listening skill. He has given us this approach, solar approach, where S means squarely face the person. So when you talk to someone, we should squarely face the person. We should not look at some other object. Right now I'm talking to you, I'm just speaking to you. It would give very bad impression about me, or you may not be the good listeners if I look around, if I do not maintain my eye contact with you, if I do not face you. Okay, eye contact is another thing, but if I do not face you. Then he talks about open posture. Then he talks about lean towards the person. L. In his solar, L means lean towards the person. Then E is eye contact and R is relax. I'll tell you what this sitting squarely means. Sitting squarely means when we sit squarely, when we face somebody squarely, when we look at the person with whom we are talking, we are telling him, in other words, I am here with you. We make him feel, yes, you speak, I am here with you. I want to listen to you and I am available to you. I am interested in you. But there may be in some situations, there are some listeners or there are some speakers. When we listen, there are some speakers who may feel as if they are threatening if we face them squarely. So there are chances we can sit in some angled positions. We cannot face them squarely. We can little bit move, but it should not be like we are not just facing them, we are not looking at them. So this is what Egan means by sitting squarely. When we sit squarely, when we face a person squarely, there are chances that we may have a good communication. There are chances that we may listen that person effectively. Then he talks about sitting. Then he talks about open postures. Open posture means we should not listen like cross-armed and cross-legged. When we are cross-armed, still cross-armed, it gives an impression as if we are not interested. We are not interested in the person. It gives an impression that as if we are not in a condition to listen. So we should avoid this cross-armed or cross-legged position when we are listening to someone. And open posture, again, it's an indication when we are very calm, when we are with the open postures. It's like as if we are telling that person, yeah, we embrace you, embrace your ideas, appreciate your thoughts. Then we have lean. Lean doesn't mean, yeah, we have to lean we have to go very close to the speaker. No, it's a normal lean. We should lean. This leaning, it gives an idea that yes, I'm giving my ear to you. I'm listening to you. So rather, if we sit on the chair and if we have that back posture, we are just leaning ourselves backside. It may give this impression that we are not interested in you. So we should little bit lean forward. It should not be that leaning as if the person may feel that this person is not having the etiquette of listening. No, we should little bit lean forward. So again, it tells us, I'm interested in you. It says, I'm interested in you. It says, yes, you please speak, I'm listening to you. Then, eye contact is very essential. We all know. Eye contact is mandatory. When we are listening to any person, we should maintain eye contact. When we are maintaining the eye contact, we are not, by maintaining eye contact, as I was telling you earlier, so when we listen people, we are not only getting the content, we are not only getting the subject knowledge, rather we get to know about the body language as well. How the person is using his body, how the person is making body postures, body gestures. This we can get when we maintain eye contact. And when we maintain eye contact, we tell the speaker, we inform the speaker that your everything is very important to us, that we are interested in you, or I'm interested in you. So we should always maintain eye contact when we speak, when we listen to people. Then relax. We should be relaxed. We should not just move here or there nervously. Rather, we should be relaxed. Because if we move here or there, so it will give a very negative impression. It will make our speaker nervous. It will not give that comfort to our speaker to speak what he or she wants to speak. And at the same time, it may hamper also our listening process. We may not be able to get exactly what we are expected to receive from that communication. Because these moments, this fidgeting, it is just telling the speaker that this person is not interested in me. So by doing this, the person may skip the main content, which may be very essential for us. So we should not do these things. So these are main fallacies about listening. Like there are people who say that listening is not my problem. It's not my problem. I'm a good listener by my birth. No. Listening is a skill which we need to learn, which we need to acquire. Then there are people who are like this. Listening and hearing are the same. Now this is not same, as I told you. Good readers are good listeners. There are people who are saying good leaders are good listeners. Good readers are good listeners. No, every good reader cannot be a good listener. Because listening is a different skill and reading is a different skill. So it's not mandatory that every good reader can be a good listener. No. Listening is something else and reading is something else. Smarter people are better listeners. Again, those who are smart, they are better listeners. No. So listening is what I want to say, it's an individual skill. It requires individual efforts. Different efforts are required to acquire this listening skill. Listening improves with age. No doubt, as we grow, we get wisdom, we get knowledge. But listening skill is something different. To acquire more knowledge, to be knowledgeable, that's something different. But listening skill, by which you acquire that knowledge, that is different. So listening cannot be improved by the age, because we are growing. So listening cannot be improved only by adding the numbers to our age. Listening skills are difficult to learn. This is again the biggest fallacy about listening, that listening skills are difficult to learn. No, they are not difficult to learn, they are easy to learn. We can learn listening skills really easily. So these are the sources where from I have prepared this PPT. I would like to thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope you must have understood something from this lecture. Thank you all. See you again.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.